welcome. I'm Alex Slosby, Chief Growth Officer here at InnoLead, and I'm very excited to have you joining us today to our webcast, How Generative AI is Transforming the Innovation Process, with Jan Beranek, U+ Group CEO and founder, and Sheppard, Managing Partner at U+ Americas. We'll get started in just a minute, but while everyone is settling in, could you please share in the chat where you're coming in from, maybe a little bit about the weather? We always like the fact that we're connecting folks all around the world. I'm here just outside of Boston. We're having a beautiful mid-80s fall summer day, which is pretty crazy. Jan, San Francisco for you?
San Francisco for me.
How's the weather? A nice San Francisco fall day or cloudy?
It's a very boring Californian blue skies day, like every other day.
Fantastic. And yeah, and Sean, you're in a beautiful place as usual. Where are you?
I am in Montana for about one more hour, and then I fly to Berlin.
And how's everything up there in Montana?
It's gorgeous. Fall is here. The leaves are turning. It's the best time of year to be here.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're getting the foliage I was just in Maine. The foliage is coming down from the north, but because we've had so much rain, it's taking its time, so it still is a bit greener than normal. But
good. Hopefully there'll be some left when we get there for Impact in
Boston. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, just in a few weeks. Good to have you all joining. We've got wonderful places: Helsinki, Finland, fantastic friends, obviously here in Boston, UAE, Dallas, Detroit, Indianapolis, Italy. Oh, these are all fantastic. So many places I'd love to visit and spend time in. Well, thank you all for coming. We'll get started in just a moment. Again, as I mentioned briefly at the beginning, I'm Alex Slosby, Chief Growth Officer here at InnoLead, and I'm really excited to welcome you to this webcast, How Generative AI is Transforming the Innovation Process, with Jan Beranek, who's U+ Group CEO and founder, and Sheppard, who's Managing Partner at U+ Americas. And so we'll get started in just a minute. Let me remind all of you that, as is customary, today's webcast is being recorded, and we'll share both the replay and the slides as we go. And also, please take advantage of Zoom's Q&A feature and the chat to share questions and comments with us. So we'll take them as we go. We'll take some at the end, and then yes, I'll follow up with the slides and the replay later. So let's get started. I'm going to do some quick introductions and then hand all of this over. Let me briefly begin by introducing Jan. As I shared, Jan is U+ Group CEO and founder. Since starting U+ 14 years ago, Jan has scaled it from Eastern Europe to Silicon Valley. And to date, U+ has brought more than 100 products and businesses to market for Fortune 2000 companies, while creating over $2 billion in value for them. And Sean is joined by Sheppard, U+ America's Managing Partner. Sean is a globally recognized thought leader with over 20 years of experience bringing new products to market, including as a 5-time sales founder with 3 exits. So everyone, again, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex. Let me share the screen. Thank you everybody for coming. Wonderful places: UAE, Helsinki, I think Italy I saw. I'm going to be traveling to all of those places very soon, so hope to see you. I wanted to start with, so this is broadly about generative AI. I wanted to start with demystifying something about prompting, because I haven't seen it anywhere, and I thought it would be, having worked on this for the past let's say 6 months. I wanted to sort of show how nascent it is and how actually applicable it can be, or how to apply basically some of the principles. So I have a lot of respect for Michio Kaku for his quantum physics work, not much for his comments about ChatGPT and large language models. So he said, I think on Joe Rogan, that large language models or ChatGPT are like glorified tape recorders, and some other things from other people are said it's just an autocomplete and things like that. On the right side, you'll see these are papers that you can look up that kind of show how to get intelligence out of large language models, right? The blue one, the chain of thought prompting, is, I would say, the state of the art right now. And everybody who's trying to build something bigger, that that's there, and I'll show you in a bit how that works. But just look at what happened in just past a month. So these papers, they're all relevant. So the August 30th one is from Stanford, enabling multi-level exploration and sense making with large language models. Chain of density, it's one of the new things as well that enables much better summarizations within one prompt. And there are other things from Harvard. The last one is September 22nd, navigating jagged technological frontier. This is a exploration of enabling BCG consultants with large language models. So even though ChatGPT has been around for almost a year, and of course large language model for longer, the research is super rapid, and anybody who's building generative AI platforms kind of became a researcher, and you spend a lot of time on archive on the preprint server. So I'm briefly going to switch into ChatGPT to show you some things, but if you take one thing from this hour, take this prompt. So this is something that we've had since the beginning of the year, and it does two things really well. One of the things is it gives the model a role. So what that is, I'm trying to quickly explain what it means. It changes the weights in the pre-trained model. So if you're, say, an expert in venture building or corporate innovation, it sort of favors the knowledge from those types of articles and papers and whatever text that it was trained on. And the other thing that's extremely good is it has to ask you questions so that you can go forward. And if you're trying to design a process, that's immensely helpful. There are a couple other things that this is that sort of give you an anatomy of a prompt. So a role, this chain of thought that I mentioned in one of the papers, examples, and an output format. So I wanted to show you, just to demystify like what good prompts look like. I kind of switched here. I have this prompt right here. Are there any suggestions of what we want to explore? If not, I'm just going to do something around venture building. So let's say you're an expert in venture building. You've been doing for the past years. Your task is now to create a structured business model. Maybe I should have switched to GPT-4, right? So the first thing that it does with this prompt, and I highly recommend, this is a prompt that I use every day if I want to learn about something, right? So it's asking me about some things that it thinks are relevant to answering this question, right? So you start answering these, answering its questions to sort of understand a little bit deeper, right? So industry, I'm just going to do a couple of those just for example, or something generic, value proposition, make it up. And 3 primary customers are corporate innovation professionals, right? And it should come up with something. Of course, if I answered much better, it should have a much more structured output for you, right? So this is a basic of how to get sort of narrowed down in terms of weights, and how to provide more information to the large language model within basically 2 prompts. I'm going to stop this and show you basically how, when we're creating prompts for the platform that I'm going to show you later, how this is done. So chain of thought prompting is sort of kind of figuring out what a step-by-step process is, and what are some examples within it. So the way you'd go about this is saying, what are, I'm creating So you're asking for the steps. It's going to give you the steps. You're going to ask for some sub-steps after that. I'm not going to do that, but that's sort of how you do it. You ask it for examples, and you give it a role, right? So again, I'm going to pause this for a bit because this is ultra slow, and I hope that will be much faster. But basically, then the way you would create a good prompt is you would give it a role. So you would give it a role like, you are expert in venture building. Go through this process silently. You have this process, and then give me an output. And then you would structure that output. I want the output to be a JSON of the business model. And this is probably not going to give you something too creative, but you can see very quickly in very rudimentary steps that I haven't even ironed out and deliberately sped up, you're getting something structured that you can then go and use. And of course, if you give it more information, you would get a much more robust output. But I wanted to sort of demystify it. I can spend more time on it. GPT-4 is ultra slow today, so I'm not going to spend too much more time. But this is a way of sort of getting more information out of ChatGPT in a much more structured way than people are typically used to. And it took about 3 prompts to get it. So if we go back, and if you basically start applying some of the things that you can read, these are readily available papers. There's a lot of YouTube videos that you can sort of go and look up, and broadly apply these principles by giving it a role, giving it a chain of thought, giving examples, which I didn't in this case, and giving it an output format. You'll get much more robust answers than you normally would. So if anybody's interested in that, we can spend a little bit more time on it, but I wanted to sort of give you like a 5 to 10 minute example of what's possible. So how's AI transforming the industry? If we could we run the first survey? We have a question, a simple yes or no question. Are you exploring AI use cases for your innovation strategy? So I'm curious. And as this is running, I will sort of go forward. This is a slide that we've had for a very long time, right? So innovation grows and protects market share, and we know that. But recently, there have been a lot of unforeseen disruptions, like the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, high energy costs, SVB's collapse, many other things, right? And then accelerated the pace of these disruptions, right? So what happens is the business models on top of the assets, the corporate assets, are starting to be, starting to tilt away and are starting to be a little bit more underutilized. So there's a bigger need for corporate innovation. But corporate innovation also has high failure rate, and it's hard to prove ROI of innovation in a risk-averse culture, right? So how can AI help us in this case?
Let's actually, yeah, Megan, why don't you go ahead and show the poll results, Jan? You can.
Yep. I don't know how long we're running. Are exploring your AI use cases? All right, so 87% is exploring AI use cases. So I think we have a group that's vastly over delivering on some of the research that we have. So I have a bunch of papers and research articles from multiple different places. So this one is from McKinsey. We're going to share, Alex, I think we're going to share these slides afterwards. So there are links. You can download all of this. This is publicly available. So you can see that, in McKinsey, they say 30% of top innovators are already deploying generative AI at scale. And it's more than 6 times the rate of companies that are lagging behind on innovation, right? So it's the strong innovators, but it's interesting that overall, if you look in terms of the economic performance, it's not that big of a difference, right? It's not that the bigger companies or the more profitable companies are using it more. It's more about sort of the type of innovator you are. So that's one. The other one, which is interesting, is a BCG report, again from 2023. The many companies are using AI to support innovation, but few are achieving impact. And I think it is, I've deliberately left this year because it doesn't fit the narrative potentially. But when working with customers of the past, let's say 5-6 months, I see this as being an organizational hurdle rather than anything else. Because it's such a game changer to be able to speed up a lot of these processes that normally would take months to a matter of weeks, days, or even hours, that it's changing the nature of the work, right? So even though you're applying AI and trying to figure it out, either you're applying it very shallowly, not using the principles of prompting that I showed you there on a very narrow subset, or you're using it in a broad sense, but you haven't changed the way you're working yet. And it's going to be obvious what I mean in this next slide, right? When I saw this next slide, I was at BCGX in, I think, at the end of August, and they were just presenting this. This is a report from from this year for the most innovative companies of 2023. And they show these two funnels. So the right funnel is companies that are not, I need to move this, sorry, are not achieving impact with AI or haven't implemented AI. And the left funnel are companies that are seeing impact from implementing AI, right? So basically what it translates to, your funnel is much bigger of the ideas that you're exploring. And those could be ideas for example, if you have business units that have challenges that need to be solved, or broad strategic questions of where to go next, typically connected with a sustainable, carbon neutral, or some digital revenue, subscription revenue type models. So you have 5 times more ideas, and your funnel is much more tapered off, right, of those ideas. So you're way more selective. You're 2 times more selective. I would say, I'll show you later. This is broad strokes agreeing with something that we're seeing on the ground when working with people and applying generative AI. Just the amount of things that you're getting is much bigger, but then you need to have also a structured way of identifying which ideas are the ideas that are the most interesting and aligned. But broadly, what generative AI in terms of this venture building use case gives you is more at-bats, more abilities, more chances for you to win. For venture investing, an interesting stat from Gartner is that by 2025, 75 VCs, early stage investors, will depend more on data than gut feel, which is very interesting because it was it used to be that was the differentiator along with the access to deal flow, right? And I've seen pitch decks from new VCs that were saying, oh, we're data driven, et cetera, in the past 5 years. And it's been kind of frowned upon, but this has started changing, and now it's going to be the mainstream. So this statistic right here is a comparison of a human versus computer, right? The best investors versus an algorithm for performance of an investment portfolio, which you can again take a look at. This is not surprising compared to all of the other examples that you can see and that I'm going to show you as well. This is one of them. There's a Wall Street Journal article from about a month ago. I think it was shared even in the lead Slack channel. Boris Plaskowski, I think from ex-SVB shared this, or Paul Campbell, ex-BAT, shared this. And basically what it says is that a Wharton professor or 2 Wharton professors were comparing the MBA students and generating new ideas, and compared them against, I think, GPT-4, and then took those ideas and put them out in the market, right? And the results were overwhelming. I think 35 out of the 40 ideas that were selected were ChatGPT selected, ChatGPT won in that terms. Of course, the ideas were generated more rapidly. They had higher purchase probability. And yeah, 88%, 35 out of 40 ideas where the top ideas were produced by ChatGPT. This is one of the reports. There's multiple different reports, and there are papers as well as anecdotal evidence of creativity of AI, which I think could be a good topic for a discussion a little bit later on. And of course, there are some, this is an actual study conducted with students and MBAs. And this is McKinsey analysis, right? Apologies. This is McKinsey analysis, right? Again, 12% uplift could add 2 to 4 trillion to the global economy across 63 use cases that were across basically everything, right? So the potential is massive. Where can you use generative AI right now, right? In terms of innovation, these are the use cases that we see across all the papers that we're sharing and all the market research, as well as where we see application of the platform that I'm going to show you very soon. So Fortune 500 companies, maybe I can skip slightly to the end. We launched a generative AI platform May 30th. It took us a month to get to 70 POCs from mostly Fortune 500 companies, and the demand came from them rather than from us. So there's massive demand. And the use cases are ranging from, of course, venture building. We've discussed this, right? So identifying all the areas that we could play, rapidly going to ideas, rapidly going to validation, rapidly going to tests, and de-risking that process even more. Venture investing, same kind of process, but understanding what are all the companies that play in a particular space? What are all the trends? What's the cross-pollination of those ideas? What are cross-pollination of those trends and strengths and weaknesses of those companies? So you see where the gaps in markets are, so you can ideally pinpoint the future winners better. Venture studios. So of course, this is an embodiment of the venture building model with the different financial output or financial envelope around. So that's kind of the same approach. Speeding up go-to-market, launching either more or better companies. An interesting one is internal matchmaking. So when you have a shared service center, innovation as a shared service, typically what we're seeing, business units have a lot of problems that need to be solved. They don't want to spend hours and days on design thinking to try to figure out what are all of the things, where are all the solutions for the challenges that they have, right? So generative AI can change the game from what do you want to be done to pick which one of these solutions that we've already verified is the solution that you should go forward with. Hyper-focus accelerators, right? So if you can do all the analysis that I've already mentioned, you can do the analysis on, well, what are the companies that are solving some of these problems, right? And you can create a tailor-made accelerator just for them, invite them for a solution of a concrete business unit problem. So hyper-focus and hyper-personalization are kind of themes across this, because you can apply, big data sets structured by generative AI to hyper-personalize, right? And ideation contests. So imagine you have people sending you all of the different ideas that they might have. Either I have one customer who said, hey, Jan, we need to figure out how to kill 500 ideas at scale, which I thought was funny. People are sending us ideas from all around the company. What should we do, right? There are different levels of quality, et cetera. Can we use something to enrich these ideas and get them on the same level and rank them at scale, et cetera? The answer is yes. So that's another use case that we're seeing. I would ask if we can look at the next survey question. So have you already tried AI for innovation, venture building, or strategy? Thank you.
And Jan, I'll just ask real quick, as that's coming up there, any just initial comments about organizational changes required to sort of open up an organization to using some of these tools and technologies, the culture, behaviors, structure, just any high-level thoughts about that?
Right. So I think it first comes with demystifying of what it can and cannot do, right? I find that there's kind of two types of people with no middle. One type of people is kind of the people that I showed you that understand everything that it can do and are heavy in prompting and spend a lot of time and understand the principles that I showed at the beginning. That's why I showed them, so that those who haven't seen it see that there's a lot there possible just with off-the-shelf stuff that anybody can have access to right now. And then there's the other group that tried it once or twice, don't know how to ask questions, and then like Michio Kaku say, well, it's not really useful. It's just saying the same things all over again that somebody said before, right? So I think what the first thing that needs to happen is bridging that divide so that people understand what is and isn't possible, and the people who are detractors to understand, no, actually they're valid, good use cases. Maybe you don't want to learn prompt engineering, that's fine. Then there are going to be platforms that do that for you. And for the people who are heavily using this, to show what use cases they're using it for to all the other colleagues and show success. As with anything innovation, you need to show traction first, right? So that's on the individual level. On the organizational, individual level within the organization. On an organizational level, I think what you can expect is 80 to 90% of all step-by-step white-collar processes that have anything to do with look at data, restructure it, bring other information in, be a little bit creative on top of it, put it in a different format, those are going to be automated. Those can be automated now. If you know how, if you follow the papers that I showed you, if you follow the simple 4-step, give it a role, give it a chain of thought, give it examples, give it an output format, you can do this now. So those are going to be automated, and it's just a matter of which industry is going to be faster. But I guarantee you, there's somebody working on this already. This is probably the best time to launch a startup, I would say, because the opportunity for automation is massive. So in terms of the organizational changes, it's not if this is going to happen, right? So how do we change what we do? I can say for the 100 roughly POCs that I remember that we did until August with our Gen AI platform, there was one person who said, okay, now I can fire the team. 99 people said, this is great, because now we can focus on the things that matter. It turns out a lot of the work that we do is busy work, and it's pushing paper around and trying to structure it and trying to communicate it a certain way. So I think there's definitely a paradigm shift in the speed at which you can do certain things. So as I'll show you later, we now look, for example, at our platform that does some of these things that you've already seen. It's moving the bottleneck downstream, right? When the bottleneck was, we need a lot of consultants and a lot of people to do a lot of research. Well, now you don't. Now you don't need to do it. You can either do it by yourself very, very quickly. So it's enabling higher productivity on an individual level, or you have a platform for it. But then the things that would take, approving projects, finding the right people, actually executing, those are much closer to you than they were before. They're in a matter of, I want to do something. Right, next week you can do it, and you can be certain that it's the right thing, compared to, I'm going to do something, it's going to take me half a year with a consultant to go figure it out. So I don't have all the answers, but those are the things that we're seeing, and we're actively discovering it with some of our customers to see how organizations change.
Thank you. Let's show the poll results, and then Jan, you can discuss them and keep going. Everybody putting great questions and comments in the chat. Keep them coming, and we'll address them as we go. But Jan, back to you.
Okay, so we have 41 people have already tried AI for innovation, venture building, or strategy. 60%, 59%. No. So that's interesting. So hope I'll convince you at the end to try a little bit more. So
hey,
what are
real
some
quickly?
Yep.
There's a great question here that I think is relevant to the conversation we were just having from Tyler that says, if every organization adopts AI for strategic planning and ideation, how do you or how do we envision them setting themselves apart? I don't know what your initial thoughts are. I've got some ideas around that. But.
So I'll go on a slight tangent because I think it's a good visualization. If you haven't seen it, Google, go on YouTube and find Flex Friedman, Mark Zuckerberg interview. They did a first interview in the metaverse with high quality sort of avatars. It looks a little eerie, and Mark says something like, well, in the future, you could, you're probably going to have an AI developer, you're going to have real people, and then you have AI people, AI avatars, and you can visualize them in a certain way. And you're going to be sitting around in a virtual space. As you know, we have a video call now. In the future, we're probably going to be sitting around and in a virtual 3D world. And there will very likely be AI entities there. That could be agents that do something useful, or it can be team members, right? So if you look at if you look at there are things like Meta GPT, not Meta the company, but if you go on GitHub and find Meta GPT, it's an agent framework, or GPT engineer that you can ask the engineer to go and code stuff for you. It's rudimentary now, but give it 2 years, and what Mark is describing is going to happen. So I would broaden the question, which is everybody's going to implement AI, and you will have colleagues who are AIs. That's going to happen, and it's going to happen in a much faster time frame, right? So then it comes back to, like, what is the service that you're delivering for our customers? How do they value it, and does it have traction, right? So we've built our platform, and we say a Gen AI platform, innovation operations, blah blah blah. Ultimately, Gen AI is a piece of it. It comes down to, does it solve anybody's problem, right? And does it solve it better than anything else? So I think it's back to the old, what is the customer experience of it? Is it better than anything else? What you're going to see that is speed is, you're going to see massive, like, orders of magnitude speed increases.
Yeah, and I would add, just from a business perspective, 2 things. What you separate yourself through value creation and execution. And I don't think those things will ever not be a thing. Even when you use a tool, and you and I talk about this all the time, Jan, this removes a bottleneck at the very beginning of the innovation lifecycle. But you still need stage relevant people with the right mindset and skill set to be able to execute on the strategies that these help you develop. That humans still need to interact with humans. Humans are still purchasing from humans. That experience still needs to be there. So I think it's the people, the execution, and the value creation that really give you an opportunity to set yourself apart. And to your point, Jan, now that you have all of this sort of taken care of by an agent or a co-pilot, if you will, or a way to, it's been accelerated by this. Now you can focus on the things that really matter.
Great. I see we're halfway in, and I'm going to make sure that we have some time for discussion. So, how can Gen AI tools impact your approach to innovation? Right. So we already covered some of this. I would focus on this piece. There's an article, I think, in Fast Company. This is a parallel to the Wharton angle, where they tested idea generation. What this is creativity using art. So DALL-E, I think, Stable Diffusion, and other things. So basically, they compared GPT-4 against art students. GPT-4 again scored in the top 1%, 99th percentile of the test takers on the originality and creative thinking and things like that. So you'll see more. You're going to see more and more of these, right? Where can you use it? Ideation, concept development, design generation, prototyping, automated content creation. And you see individual pieces on that as well online. I'm going to quickly run through these slides to get to the next ones and to get to a real example. You can, of course, there's multiple different tools. There's much more comprehensive than what I have on the slide, but the AI usage examples like hyper-personalization of ventures, that is a recurring theme, scenario planning and strategy development, like I just showed you very quickly, briefly, have broken example of how to create a step-by-step process, chain of thought for an AI to create an output. Actually, scenario planning and strategy development is one of those things that are that lend themselves well to automation, because it's a known step-by-step process that an AI can go and deliver on. Expanding solution space during opportunity exploration, so sort of finding adjacencies, also a good example. There are two sort of practices that the researchers have sort of divided AI uses into. So Centaur, where you're using your own knowledge of the current strengths in Gen AI and sort of ask it to do subtasks. And then the subwork practices, where you use it for like a subtask in the overall process. We'll run through this. There's a research on it. It's pretty good. Let's go. Do we have the last one? Yes, I'll wait with the last survey afterwards. So best practices and tangible results. So I'm gonna go to some concrete things. So we have built in Gen AI platform called U+AI for now. It's a platform that automates step-by-step the research, discovery, validation, and market testing. So the whole venture building sort of process, right? To cut it short, this would have taken us 5 months. It takes 1 hour now. So this is the amount, this is the order of magnitude increase that you can imagine when deploying generative AI. So this is an actual output of working with the platform with one of our customers. It's a California-based customer. We've looked at 7 different problem spaces with them, generated 200 different ideas. They selected 10 that they liked. Out of the 10, we built, or rather the platform built 2 landing pages that we drove traffic to, and we had 10 signups within a few days. So fully AI-generated venture with fully AI-generated landing page resulted in signups, right? And it took 2 weeks of calendar time, where most of the time people were sleeping and thinking. The platform could do it in a day. And that's not to say our platform is the best. That's to say this is just the speed at which generative AI works. And if you have good data, show it, it's going to work out this way. So I'm going to start skipping to get to the examples, just to save some time. The platform has 3 different portions. So research AI, discover AI, market test AI. The first set is something that we haven't touched on just yet. You can go to ChatGPT like I did. You can ask it some questions. What it's going to use is only the stuff that it was trained on, which is okay for broad business questions. And if you give it some data that fit into the prompt. What it's not good for is basing its outputs on research with sources, right? And when you're trying to build your business using generative AI, the sources and the factuality of the information that it gives you for it not to be hallucinated is pretty important. So the very first step that we do is we take all of the public information that exists and all the private information that a company might have and merge it together. So we have a couple of agents that go and, based on a question that you want to ask, scrape the internet, get all the information, anything from BCG, McKinsey, Bain, all of TechCrunch, any press releases, anything you can imagine, research papers, etc. All of that is found on demand. So if you've seen McKinsey's Lily, they loaded 100,000, I think, articles into a large language model for their consultants to be able to ask questions. So this is what we have on demand every time you ask a question. The next step is discovery of ventures. So this is that process when I said every step-by-step process that you have in an organization that a white-collar worker or knowledge worker can do right now is going to be automated. So we automated ours, right? So from design thinking, using multiple different ideation methodologies to come up with viable ventures, creation of personas, creation of customer journeys and things like that. That's all that the AI can do. So we started stacking more and more things that I've shown you before, more and more use cases into one. And then ultimately, the end goal was to, it's all fine and good if we're able to generate all of these things, but how do we know they're real? Question that we always got is, well, you put it online, you drive traffic to it, and you see if people like it, right? If people start signing up, there's a pretty strong market signal, right? So this whole thing is integrated end to end. I'm going to switch from this presentation, and I'm going to show you. See if there's something else interesting. Oh, so customers are already using it. There are a bunch of customers that have been already using it. They're the biggest companies in the world. There are venture studios like Zoe Foundry that we're enabling end-to-end, speeding up their go-to-market from, I think, 10 months to something like 5. So it's pretty significant. So they're able to launch more. And we've used it across multiple different use cases. So from desert agriculture to home hardening against wildfire, to solar panel hail damage, to sustainability in dairy processing, aviation circle ecosystem. So this also shows the abstraction level that you can achieve with large language models, right? So for eGym, we're not experts in any of these, and would never be, right? But if you have the right data, you can anchor that model to be able to answer these questions. So let me show you. Let me actually get you to an example so that you see a real application. Fun fact: a lot of what you've seen was generated by our platform. So the way the platform works is this is a PDF output of it. So we're asking customers to answer these 8 questions. The most important ones are: what's the opportunity area, problem space? Can you elaborate on specific problems? Do you have any particular geographical focus on some other stuff, right? So the first step that happens is the platform tries to understand the problem space, right? So summarizes the problem space, and then starts giving you, and goes on the internet, finds all the information that it can find. Here, it didn't have any private information, but it starts giving you, this is synthesized, you can think of it as a meta-analysis of all the sources that it found. So it's a synthesized market research, right? So total addressable market, market growth, segmentation, and we see the sources, market trends. This is for venture building, application of generative AI and venture building. So market drivers, market constraints, you can see that disruption There are high failure rate of corporate innovation and challenges posed by frequent disruptions, something that you've heard me say. Something that we've discussed and was as a question is, there are also issues of change management as employees may resist the introduction of AI due to fears of job loss, etc. So this is an output of that synthesis, right? We haven't asked it to come up with this. This is just what it came up with based on publicly available information. Market challenges, large incumbents, sources, right? So you have all the sources that were used. That was step one. We ran this for ourselves just so we understand, right? So we're looking, these are the ventures that it came up with. So AI-driven venture building, idea generation tool, market research tool, business model generator, innovation strategic advisory, research platform, etc. We took the one that was the closest to what we've already built. Of course, there's some ranking. And then the next step is the platform actually creates personas that should be very similar to the people who are on this call. As you can see, Sarah, who's an innovation specialist working with a corporate innovation team, or Lucas here, who's the strategy director working for a large corporation. And then you run a simulation of an interview. So that's a good way to get a lot of data, a lot of insights out of data that were gathered at scale without having to know what questions to ask, right? So we have Simon, our AI interviewer, asking these questions, and we have, in this case, Emily, who's an innovation consultant, answering these questions. And it enables us to synthesize insights that a person like Emily might have about this product, again, at scale. So one of Emily's concerns and barriers is accuracy and reliability of data generated by the platform. I haven't looked at the questions, but I'm assuming that one of the questions is, how do I know that it's not hallucinating and things like that, right? So this kind of shows how you can narrow down, if this is 80% directionally correct, you can base it off, you can base your thinking off of that, right? The benefit is this took probably half an hour to get to this stage. When you're here, when you go further, basically the platform said, well, here's the feasibility and viability of this whole venture, sales process, risk assessment, the features that it should have, integration of external data and API sources, advanced machine learning algorithms, etc. And then it came up with the microsite copy for us. We're not using this one, but came up with microsite copy, campaign objectives, etc. Let me quickly switch to another one just to show. This is a output for sustainability of new construction single-family homes. One of the outputs was a company called Aquasense, where we ran basically when you want to actually go and expand on on any of these ideas, it does the market research again, looks at the problem space, does the sizing, creates market potential, looks at all the companies that are already existing in the market space. They're very similar to that Aquasense concept. Their strengths and weaknesses, does a gap analysis to identify from which angle to enter the market, expands on all the features, defines all the audiences, creates all the marketing copy, ultimately and I think I mentioned this, a market testing landing page, right? So this one is a fully AI-generated landing page for a fully AI-generated venture. This is just a sample. I can show you one. You can go online right now to this one. This is an older version. If you go to encorepathways.online, this is a live venture that we launched in 3 days. It had 3 signups, and in 3 weeks, it had 40 signups. Fully AI-generated venture in the area of aging in place. I think this is a good time for the last survey, if we can run it. And I think we're very close to the end. I've shown you just this now. And I think we're ready for a Q&A. I can dive deeper. I wanted to leave 15 minutes for us for any follow-up questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. So everyone, just please complete the poll question. It's up in front of you. We see the results coming in a moment. Keep coming. We'll close the poll. Jan can take a look at the results, and then we can go through a bunch of your excellent questions. So let's take a moment more. And actually, while you're putting in, Jan, just touch one more time on this whole, obviously, concern about data and privacy security, right? a number of folks, as you expected, raised concerns about using it for scouting or ideation. Where does the data go? How have you all also adjusted with your tool?
Yeah, so there are 2 points, 2 parts to it. One is the public information, right? So public information is public. There's a whole system that there's a whole series of systems that, based on the questions asked, based on the problem space, goes and creates Google search queries, looks at all the information and assesses if it's the right information, then it downloads it. So that's the public part. The private part is basically we're SOC 2 and GDPR compliant. And for every single, and it's an AWS serverless solution, the whole infrastructure, right? So there are multiple levels of security that we can guarantee. I know, for example, in the UAE, we can deploy, the data sovereignty is important. In Italy, for example, same thing, right? We can deploy within a country, no problem. We're not cross-pollinating data from multiple different customers. It's all in their own enclaves or all in their private clouds. We don't train on anybody's data, and we cannot resell the stuff, right? So it's enterprise grade solution.
Great, thank you, Megan. You can end the poll, and you'll be able to see the results real quick. So pretty much everybody believes AI can generate meaningful outputs, but a whole bunch of reasons why they haven't tried it yet. So a lot of those unknowns. One more thing on the security piece. So a lot of leaders are coalescing around the idea that they need to partner with some big tech company and do that work in order to experiment sort of carefully. Would you say that's basically the case? Don't use any of the open stuff, go with a tech company, or no?
No, I would say it's the exact opposite. Go try it as much as you can with ChatGPT. If you're worried about data protection, if the company doesn't allow it, then figure out what you can use, which ones. Long story short, people are confounding. I'll probably stop sharing, right, so that we have more space for questions I can see. People are confounding ChatGPT and the OpenAI API, and they would say we used ChatGPT 4 for this, when they mean we used the API for this. And it's a massive distinction, because the API is an enterprise level service that doesn't train on your data, which is really, really important. Right? And there's enterprise ChatGPT, which is the consumer. It's the enterprise version of the consumer product with the interface, versus the API is you just send the prompts, it gives you questions back, right? So you can test everything that I showed. You can test with the API right now, right? And you can do it on your own. You don't have to share personal information, but it's more about believing, well, first trying and then seeing that the intelligence is there.
And we just had a strategy session the other day, and again, getting the language right within organizations is huge. Gen AI is not all of AI. It is one piece of it, and it is something that, in fact, a bunch of this ChatGPT stuff has been around actually for a while, and it's just become public. But an understanding of what's public, what's private, the APIs, all these different models, because as we saw, a lot of companies, folks experimenting with the public ChatGPT, just throwing stuff in there and not realizing that once they do that, it's out of your grips. Another question that was raised around research and ethnography. So some concerns that, well, no matter how good these tools are, they can't do ethnography for you. They can't do home visits or go visit folks and observe them as they are. How would you respond to that?
That's not the purpose of this tool, right? So the way you should look at this tool or any other tool, I can talk from our experience from having daily worked on this since March, is think of it as the first step is think of it as you have an army of consultants or army of interns that go and do the research for you, right, online, and gather a lot of information. And you can go and you can ask that information questions, right? So you're basically building your own context for basically your own ChatGPT to ask questions. So on our web platform, that's actually one of the features, right? Because we don't necessarily know what people want to know. We have standardized some process, but you can go and ask these questions. And then it's sort of, and then you're applying standard business processes, right? So we vertically integrated the venture building process on top as multiple different modules, right? So when you get to the level of when I showed you AquaSense, for example, you have a lot of definition synthesized from real market research using standard business practices like design thinking, etc., to get to a different amalgamation of that information in the form of that venture definition, right? And again, you can go and ask good questions. So it speeds up whatever if there is public data, if there's data that you can feed it, there's likely a prompt and series of other things around that you can write to automate extraction information. It will not go knock on doors. It will not do your real interviews, etc. That's still important. So this is a tool. One of the things that I said at the beginning is this moves the bottleneck, right? So the bottleneck used to be, well, we need to do all of this this research, and we need to pay all of these consultants. We have one big customer that's working with us now said we have 30 problem spaces they want to do. If we hired McKinsey, it would cost $10 million, right? I can do 30 problem spaces in 30 days very easily with follow-up and everything, right? So we're moving to bottleneck to the, okay, so now we know what we should be building. Now, okay, like who's the right, it's one of our friends likes to say innovation is a matchmaking function, right? So now I know that there's a potential venture that uses our assets. People want it, right? Because we've run these tests. What's the right business unit? Who's the right stakeholder? Which budget do we take it from? Who builds it, right? So you're much more, so that's where, and you still need to go and verify with people. You need to, if we do run these tests and we have 40 people who sign up, well, then let's go and ask those 40 people why they signed up, right? So, but it takes you 2 weeks, not 6 months. So that's the way to think about it.
So early last year, this whole concept of prompt engineering, right, just popped up immediately. You've got to be good at the prompts and understanding what you could do, because it's like molding clay or conducting an orchestra or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's still, everything that's up these days is as new features come out, as integrations with DALL-E, all sorts of things, right? Look at all the things we're figuring out how to do. But also, you now have tools and platforms that are abstracting the prompts a bit, right? So, okay, we'll use the platform and it's going to essentially generate the prompts for you, so you don't have to be smart at the prompts.
Yes.
How important is it going to continue to be to try to get good at understanding and manipulating prompts yourself? Won't there always be new tools that'll just sort of catch up and say, yeah, we'll do it for you?
Yeah, so I would think of it as a car with an automatic transmission, right? You can learn how to drive stick, right? And it's much more sort of bare metal to the ground kind of thing, and people like it, and you have much more control over it. Or you just want to get to the destination, right? So any platform is going to try to abstract away the complexity of prompt engineering, which essentially is finding something that works through the step-by-step process, for example, chain of thought, and passing the right information to the prompt with the right context of data to synthesize something else, right? But for example, the prompts, each one prompt that we have in our platform is 300, 400 lines without any variables, right? So it becomes very complex. So you're getting this value, but we're abstracting away everything away from it. And that's going to be a trend. So it's like knowing how to code. It's a useful skill, right? But I think it's much more accessible because it's English. It's an English language. It's a way to code with English language.
So I'm going to ask, put you both on a spot with maybe a challenging question. So if you were going to start building a corporate innovation team today, or planning to build one next year, given all of this, how do you think you'd structure that team? What are the roles you might not include, or how might you tweak it given all of these tools they can leverage?
I would heavily focus on it, like Sean said, I would heavily focus on execution, right? And making things happen inside the organization. So stakeholder management, making sure much more politically savvy people, less the researchers, much more this, so that things actually happen. There's no innovation without traction, right? So we've moved the bottleneck to the brink of traction, right? We've identified, nobody should be asking any questions about what should we be doing. It's very clear what you should be doing, or if you don't know, you can have that answer within a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks, like in this actual real example, right? So it's much more the actioning rather than the research or consultant management or whatever.
John, any thoughts from you?
Well, yeah, you structure, and we've got structures that we always recommend. You typically want what we would call a commercial leader who's responsible for the commercialization of ideas. You want a product leader who's responsible for the productization of those ideas. Then you want your user research and user experience and user interviewers for the ethnography and the additional human-to-human interactions you have to perform to validate that. You may need just one analyst who can run this AI platform so that you can do a lot more with a lot less. And then you're going to need what we call sort of the delivery engine, right? Now you've got an idea that's and a business case that needs to get bought off on that the commercial lead is responsible for. Now you're going to need a team to build it and commercialize it. And so then you can have what we would call on-demand teams by project or product that can be spun up to execute on a particular idea. But that core team should always include somebody who's a commercial expert, somebody who's a product expert, somebody who can do the research. And then out of that, you can build out businesses.
Well, and it strikes me, we've talked forever about the importance of business unit and function unit collaboration, right? How you work with legal, risk, compliance, IT, et cetera, couldn't be more crucial now, right? And so they've got to be in right away. And I think some of these tough conversations have got to get surfaced, right? Because everybody's immediately going to say, oh, privacy and risk. And so I think the innovation team, right, has to come with some pretty good thinking and data insights and maybe support from experts to show there's a way to do it without us putting the enterprise.
Yeah, and here's another radical idea. We're seeing some companies set up separate legal entities as essentially stealth entities away from the brand to do all of this so that they don't have to deal with that. And even the testing is not tied to the brand, which is even better because we've always said, when I put my VC hat on, I want strangers' feedback. That's more valuable to me than friends and family feedback, right? Strangers will tell me the truth. And that's what I want to get to. I want to get to that truth as quickly as I can. So we're seeing separate entities set up that are funded separately, that can operate separately to move faster.
Alex, if I can, I'm seeing two questions that I kind of would like to tackle together. So from one from Jim and one from Tom. So sorry, actually from Tom and Ian, that moved a little bit. So you showed, Jan, you showed one basic problem series approach, but there are many few shot, et cetera, examples. What is a productive approach to learn, test, and down select viable prompt strategy? And they the other one from Ian, what type of team needs to be built with AI in the loop? It's one thing that I haven't touched on, the last thing, and I think it's really important. Generative AI doesn't work with just developers, and it doesn't work with just subject matter experts. In programming, there's a concept called extreme programming, which is literally you have two developers sitting at one computer talking about the concepts and trying to come up with what the code should look like, right? And it's more of a discussion. And what we've seen, this is 100% generative AI, but it's a little bit more challenging because the coders typically can write the infrastructure. Then somebody needs to figure out how to write the prompts. But the biggest problem is you need to assess what good looks like, what is a good output, and then how to make that output scalable given various inputs that you're going to get. So for a platform like ours, we have a massive advantage as U+ because we have subject matter experts on commercialization, UX design, marketing, etc. So for every single sort of module that you have seen there, we needed a different person to come in and see this is how I'm thinking about this, so that we can capture that process, and this is what good looks like, right? And it's an iterative process, and it's non-deterministic, meaning that it's not a coder writes it and it's done. It's you write it and you keep iterating it, and it could be better in certain ways, but you've kind of broadly gotten there. So you need developers and you need subject matter experts. And then you need people who know how to integrate all of that together. So for example, what we did, we have 2 researchers and 2 developers on our AI platform. That's enough to build it. 4 FTEs, plus there's 2 FTEs other people shared. And we taught the researchers on how to do prompt engineering so that they can iterate. There's the subject matter experts, but they can iterate the platform now. And then on the few short examples, etc. Yes, there are many, Tom. The reason why I was showing the chain of thought with the step-by-step process and the examples in them is because it's the most natural way we've seen for people to think about a process. And you can also go and ask ChatGPT to give you that process, steps of the process, and examples within that process, so that a person can verify it. And if you do it this way, the prompts, at least from our experience, become more robust in terms of the outputs, and it's easier to tweak them.
Jan, thanks so much. I just wanted to share, as my colleague Megan did, that at our conference later this month, Impact, Sean will be there along with U+. They'll demo the platform and also share more during a workshop. And so Megan's put in some information into the chat. If you're not already planning to join us, please do. The information is there. You can click on the link to learn more. We also have your questions and some of the ones that we didn't address, and the U+ team will follow up afterwards. As I said, we'll share the replay and the slides. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us or to U+ with follow-up questions and comments. But for now, let me thank you all for joining. And Jan and Sean, this was fantastic. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll all be in touch.
Thank you, everyone.